Well, let's speak more about today's evidence at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Bring in Security Strategist Mashaile. Welcome back, Mr. Mashaile, to SA Today. So have the Commission's evidence leaders opened a big can of worms with this MCB evidence?
Tembi, good afternoon to you and to the magnificent team in the production room. And they have opened, the evidence leaders has just opened a drum of worms. A drum of worms, because once you are in possession of the technology, there is serious trouble for those that might be tracked, for those that might be targets. This technology must never be in the hands of anyone else. You have seen for yourself with the Pegasus software developed by the NSA group in Israel, how they tracked a journalist and who ended up being chopped into pieces at the Saudi embassy somewhere in Europe.
So have the texts then, as they were read today by the chief evidence leader, have they brought us and the Commission itself closer to unearthing or exposing, in fact, even the identities of the figures behind what we've been talking about for the last year or so, the so-called Big Five criminal cartel?
Definitely. The mention of those big names and the nature of the business that they were pursuing and the nature of the products that they wanted to buy and sell says this is a high-stake operation, and leadership obviously at that level suggests that there is more to what meets the eye in terms of the leadership as well as the characterization of these men who are allegedly referred to as the cartel leaders.
Are we then beginning, Andy, to look at a situation where possibly we may be having to follow a thread, we may be beginning to follow, in fact, a thread that could possibly lead to even transnational crime, when you consider that one of the allegations from these chats is that this grabber device, this surveillance device, was going to be procured for the Kingdom of Eswatini, the king's name coming up directly?
It would have been secured or bought and sold for the Eswatini government. You don't know the involvement of the king in terms of the information that they would want to extract. Remember the grabber, you can listen to people's telephone calls, you can intercept messages, text messages. Hence, I said this is a very dangerous technology to be in the hands of civilians. This technology should only belong to law enforcement and military, because there it is a little bit controlled, and the control would be for the purposes of investigation. Even though we have learned some weeks or some months that there are people who are using the grabber and selling the information to networks who would be interested in the information secured from the grabber.
It's also frightening to think, Mr. Mashaile, that someone like Faninkosi, a sergeant in the police service, would have used, for example, his employment details and privileges ultimately to try and front with this company based in the Czech Republic, to convince them to come here to give a presentation on the use of this grabber, pretending ultimately that it was going to be procured for South African government purposes, legitimate purposes. And it begs the question, and in fact Commissioner Khumalo asked this, what's to say that Nkosi, for example, wasn't using the same information to maybe bring in weapons or something more dangerous into the country?
Tembekile, given the turn of events, it is possible that high-caliber firearms were secured from other parts of the world and other parts of the continent for purposes of the commission of crime. And when we pick up this thread, Tembekile, we can tell that this is a highly organized network that would need to be further investigated by the Special Investigations Task Team to go deeper than the Madlanga Commission.
And on the point about a network, From the evidence presented so far at the Commission, especially from these chats today around Jotham Msibi, what do they tell us about the role that he may have played in this alleged network, this web of alleged criminality?
Yeah, he would have played the father figure to all those who are involved. The father figure, I'm using it economically, the Godfather, as in the Godfather movies and the Vito Corleone, the head of the networks.
And with him now out of the picture, because he died, I think it was in 2024, how much do you think has gone with him in terms of tangible evidence that may be used to ultimately lead law enforcement, not the Commission, but law enforcement to convictions or bringing down an entire network, if indeed that is what we're dealing with here?
Physically, a lot might have gone down with him, but digitally, we have just unearthed a serious charge of the operations and what those operations were intended to achieve. And I am assuming that further investigations going into the cloud, going into the technology, safe for the want of a better way, would lead to an environment where evidence would be procured. Obviously, evidence that would come from all those that he was communicating with.
I do want us to look ahead to tomorrow morning, Andy, because that's when Fadiel Adams, the leader of the National Coloured Congress, is due to return to the Madlanga Commission. The chairperson was not very happy with him the last time he appeared, saying that he basically was not prepared to begin to give testimony because he'd had issues with his laptop, I think, issued by Parliament. We know Parliament has now come and disputed that quite publicly. When Adams goes back to the Commission tomorrow, what will you be looking for in terms of his testimony and the questions that he should face, especially around this intelligence information and the allegations that he may, in fact, have been used to wage battles within IDAC or participated fully knowing what was going on?
Tembekile, I am expecting him to appear before the Commission. I hope, number one, that is not going to be sick tomorrow. Number two, we are all interested in finding out the relationship between himself and those other generals in the space of crime intelligence. Number three, I am expecting him to tell us more about the Section 27 referral that was generated somewhere in those dark alleys that we picked up from IDEC. Number four, I am expecting him not to be a willing witness. I am actually expecting hostility from him, given the nature of things that he has to respond to. The so-called crime intelligence information put under his door or slid under his door. I would want to see if when CCTV footage is put to him in that passage where there are doors of parliamentarians, I would want to find out his reaction. But there's a lot. I know for the fact that he is not going to respond to some of those questions, enjoying the constitutional protection that says where there are matters that are before the courts, like the Cindy Somagata matter, he is not going to incriminate himself by answering. So the same strategy and tactics used by Ndate Makala will operate.
Andy Mashaile, always a pleasure to talk to you, security analyst, speaking to us on SABC News.